How does a recovering problem gambler see money differently? Researched by Sachin J. Karnik. The Angel Wing, LLC. Quantum Transformation Program. See disclaimer at the end of audio recording. The Evolving Financial Mindset in Gambling Recovery. The journey of gambling recovery is not merely a matter of abstaining from wagering behavior. It represents a fundamental psychological transformation. Among the most profound shifts a recovering gambler undergoes is a complete reevaluation of their relationship with money. No longer perceived as an instrument for emotional highs, escapism, or quick salvation, money must be reframed as a stable, neutral resource necessary for living a balanced life. This evolving financial mindset is not instantaneous. It unfolds gradually, paralleling the stages of emotional healing and cognitive restructuring that mark the recovery process. In active addiction, money is imbued with a magical or mythic quality. For the problem gambler, each dollar carries the weight of possibility, the possibility of redemption, sudden fortune, and absolution from life's many burdens. This distorted view fuels an endless cycle of risk-taking and loss, where money becomes a means of both fantasy creation and self-destruction. The gambler often loses the ability to see money as finite, practical, and necessary for everyday responsibilities. Emotional regulation becomes tethered to the unstable outcomes of bets rather than the steady security that financial prudence can provide. Early recovery is characterized by confrontation, the painful realization that money must no longer be treated as a weapon against oneself. Many recovering gamblers initially experience a profound sense of fear, shame, and grief as they face the financial wreckage caused by their behavior. At this stage, financial sobriety is as daunting as behavioral sobriety. It requires the individual to accept that there are no shortcuts, no miraculous wins waiting in the wings. Only hard work, patience, and structure can rebuild what was lost. The first steps often involve surrendering financial control to trusted parties, setting strict cash allowances, or undergoing financial counseling. As recovery deepens, a more sophisticated view of money begins to emerge. Money is increasingly understood as a tool, a neutral and inert resource that supports personal goals, sustains family life, and enables healthy participation in society. This reframing is essential because it strips money of its emotional volatility. No longer seen as a source of euphoria or despair, money becomes an ordinary, manageable aspect of life. Budgets, savings plans, and financial priorities are not merely techniques for survival. They are acts of self-respect, affirmations that the individual values their own stability and future. One of the critical aspects of this evolving financial mindset is the development of delayed gratification. In the gambling mindset, rewards are instant, unpredictable, and addictive. Recovery, by contrast, demands the cultivation of patience and the capacity to work steadily toward financial goals over time. Saving for emergencies, paying down debt, and building a modest investment account are victories that do not bring immediate dopamine surges. Instead, they build a subtler, more enduring sense of accomplishment, one that strengthens resilience against relapse triggers. Emotional regulation becomes increasingly tied to financial behaviors during this stage. When stress, boredom, or grief arise, emotions that once triggered gambling episodes, the recovering individual learns to lean on the security of structured financial systems. Knowing that bills are paid, rent is secured, and groceries are stocked provides a foundation of calm. Emotional spikes no longer demand financial risk as a coping mechanism. Instead, the individual's financial habits become a barometer for their emotional health, providing an early warning system for when therapeutic intervention or additional support might be needed. Another important milestone in the evolving financial mindset is the reclamation of self-trust. Problem gambling erodes the gambler's ability to trust themselves with money. Each relapse compounds feelings of incompetence and self-betrayal. In recovery, each responsible financial decision, each budget followed, each bill paid on time, becomes an act of internal repair. Over time, the recovering individual no longer fears themselves with money. They recognize themselves as a reliable steward of their resources, capable of planning wisely and living within reality's constraints rather than chasing illusions. Community support often plays a vital role in this transformation. Whether through 12-step programs like Gamblers Anonymous, therapy groups, or family involvement, recovering individuals frequently find it necessary to disclose their financial struggles openly and receive structured feedback. This transparency reinforces accountability and helps dismantle the secrecy that once enabled addictive behaviors. Financial recovery is thus not a solitary endeavor, but a communal one, woven into the broader network of emotional and social healing. Ultimately, the evolving financial mindset in gambling recovery is a mirror of the individual's larger psychological evolution, where once impulsivity, magical thinking, and emotional reactivity governed behavior, now rationality, patience, and self-compassion take their place. Money is no longer a symbol of salvation or doom. It is simply a tool among many tools needed for a healthy, stable, and meaningful life. The recovering gambler becomes not merely abstinent, but transformed, no longer a prisoner of fantasy, but an architect of their own future. In sum, the evolving financial mindset in gambling recovery is a profound re-education of thought, emotion, and behavior. It requires the dismantling of deeply ingrained illusions and the patient construction of new, reality-based beliefs and practices. As financial sobriety grows, so too does personal freedom, emotional peace, and the possibility of a life no longer dictated by the next gamble, but shaped intentionally through everyday acts of financial stewardship. The evolving financial mindset in gambling recovery. A day in the life. When Adam wakes up in his modest apartment, sunlight already spilling through the blinds, he no longer checks his phone for betting odds or casino promos. Those frantic mornings, when he once sprang out of bed, mind buzzing with schemes to win back yesterday's losses, feel like a lifetime ago. Instead, Adam reaches for the small journal on his nightstand, where he tracks not just his recovery milestones, but also his monthly budget. Today is rent day, and he smiles as he notes it. The money is already set aside, waiting, accounted for. There was a time when rent day filled Adam with dread. Back then, his paycheck, often earmarked for bills and groceries, would evaporate within hours at the local casino or on a sports betting app. Every dollar felt alive in his hands, hot, electric, promising miracles. Money was not something he used to survive. It was something he used to feel. It fed the desperate hope that if he just got lucky enough, he could reset his entire life. The very same money that could have bought security became a weapon he turned against himself. Now, after 2 years of serious recovery work, Adam sees money differently. It is no longer thrilling or terrifying. It is neutral, a tool for life, nothing more and nothing less. After breakfast, he logs into his banking app. Instead of seeing a drained account and a list of overdraft fees, he sees structure, a main checking account for living expenses, a savings account for emergencies, and a small but steadily growing retirement fund. Each transaction reflects careful thought, not reckless emotion. Money is now something he protects, not gambles. Mid-morning, Adam attends his weekly recovery group. During the check-in, he shares that last week he was tempted when he received an unexpected refund check. In the past, a windfall like that would have been the perfect excuse for just one bet. But this time, he deposited it directly into his savings account without hesitation. He talks about how budgeting has become a form of self-care, like brushing his teeth or eating healthy. His peers nod in understanding. They know that this ordinary act, saving a refund, is an extraordinary act of healing. After the meeting, Adam heads to the grocery store with a list in hand. He chuckles to himself at how he once blew hundreds of dollars in minutes, but now studies coupon apps and sale flyers. It's not about being miserly. It's about respect for money, for his labor, for himself. He feels a quiet pride as he sticks to his budget. There is a different kind of win now, a slow and steady one. The satisfaction of meeting his needs with discipline rather than chasing fantasy. In the afternoon, Adam attends an online financial literacy workshop offered through his therapy center. He listens carefully to lessons on debt management and investment basics, topics he once found boring or irrelevant. For the first time, they feel empowering. Financial planning is no longer an obligation forced on him by guilt or shame. It is a way to build a real, tangible future. Each lesson is a brick laid in the foundation of a life he is constructing with conscious intent. Later that evening, while paying his electricity bill online, Adam remembers the days when such a simple task seemed impossible. He used to let bills pile up unopened, dreading the reminders of money wasted and opportunities lost. Now, every paid bill is a small ceremony of dignity. Money, he realizes, will never be exciting again, and that's exactly how it should be. The absence of drama, the presence of quiet reliability, is its own kind of miracle. Before bed, Adam reviews his weekly financial log. He notes that he stayed within his grocery budget, saved a portion of his income, and made all necessary payments. He marks each success with a green check mark. These small victories are invisible to the world but monumental to him. He feels the difference deep in his bones, the difference between chaos and order, between chasing illusions and living in reality. As Adam lays down to sleep, he thinks about what money represents to him now. It no longer whispers promises of salvation or doom. It sits quietly in the background, serving its rightful place, a support for life, not the purpose of life. His relationship with money has evolved, just as he has. Recovery, he knows, is not just about not gambling. It is about learning to live, truly live, without needing to roll the dice ever again. In the silence of his small apartment, filled with nothing flashy but everything necessary, Adam drifts off to sleep. His final thought is simple, but powerful. Today, I respected myself. And in respecting himself, he respected his money and his future. The evolving financial mindset in gambling recovery, a reflection of hope. There comes a day in recovery when money stops feeling like a storm and starts feeling like a river. Not something wild and reckless, crashing through your life, uprooting everything it touches, but something steady, something flowing, manageable, even beautiful. It carries you where you need to go not by force, but by trust, by planning, by patience. In the darkest days of gambling, money was not money. It was adrenaline. It was dreams. It was escape. A single dollar wasn't seen for what it was seen for what it might become if luck turned your way. You weren't just losing bills or coins. You were losing hopes, identities, futures over and over, chasing ghosts. But now you see differently. Now each dollar is a choice. Not a gamble. Not a desperate wish. A simple, sacred choice to build, to nourish, to honor your life. Every budget you create is a quiet rebellion against the chaos of addiction. Every bill you pay is a victory over the old lies that once controlled you. Every saved dollar is a small, shining testament. I am worth stability. I am worth peace. There will be days when the old temptations whisper in your ear. Take the shortcut. Feel the rush. Solve it all at once. But you know now that real healing doesn't come in lightning strikes. It comes in steady rain, in the planting of seeds, in the careful tending of your life. Money is not your enemy anymore. Money is not your savior either. Money is simply a tool, and you're learning to be its master, not its servant. And as you grow stronger, you realize something even greater. You were never really chasing money. You were chasing freedom. You were chasing peace. You were chasing a future you thought was out of reach. Today, you know the truth. Freedom is not found at the end of a bet. It's found in every mindful choice you make. It's found in every responsible step you take. It's found, one day at a time, in the life you are building with your own two hands, patient, steady, and strong. You are not who you were, and you are not who you will become. You are standing, today, in the powerful, sacred space of transformation. And with every wise decision, financial or otherwise, you are writing a new story. A story of healing, a story of respect, a story of hope. And it's only just beginning. From illusion to stewardship, the changing perception of money in gambling recovery. The path from problem gambling to sustained recovery is marked by profound internal shifts, none more critical than the changing perception of money itself. For a person trapped in gambling addiction, money ceases to be a practical resource and becomes instead a symbol of fantasy, a powerful illusion that promises rescue, transformation, and emotional highs. The gambler projects hope, excitement, and even identity onto money, thus severing it from its real-world function. Recovery demands that this illusion be shattered and replaced with a new, grounded relationship, one based on stewardship, respect, and conscious management. In the gambling mindset, money is rarely treated rationally. Each dollar carries emotional weight, not just as currency, but as potential. A small amount of cash is imagined to possess limitless possibilities if only the right bet is made. This projection transforms money into a magical force rather than a measurable resource. The mind becomes trapped in cycles of anticipation, loss chasing, and desperation, making logical financial decision-making almost impossible. In this way, money becomes deeply entangled with the gambler's emotional regulation system. As the gambling addiction progresses, the illusion surrounding money deepens. Losses are rationalized as temporary setbacks, while occasional wins reinforce the dangerous belief that success is just around the corner. Money is no longer seen as a medium of exchange, but as a pathway to redemption. The longer this illusion persists, the more money becomes weaponized against the gambler's own life stability, eroding their capacity for financial and emotional self-care. This collapse often culminates in overwhelming debt, broken relationships, and a profound sense of personal failure. The early stages of recovery are often dominated by grief and confusion as the gambler faces the stark reality of their financial situation. The illusion is dismantled, often painfully, as debts are totaled, essential needs go unmet, and the fantasy of a quick financial comeback dies. This mourning process is necessary, for only by acknowledging the depth of the financial and emotional damage can the recovering individual begin to reconstruct a healthier relationship with money. It marks the painful but liberating transition from delusion to honesty. In recovery, a key concept that emerges is stewardship, the mindful, respectful management of money as a finite and valuable resource. Money is no longer seen as a miracle maker or a self-worth barometer. It is understood for what it truly is, a tool that supports life's basic needs, future planning, and personal well-being. Developing a stewardship mindset requires deliberate re-education, budgeting, saving, setting financial boundaries, and learning to experience satisfaction from small, steady gains rather than risky windfalls. Stewardship also involves emotional growth. Where gambling once linked emotional relief to financial risk, stewardship connects emotional health to financial responsibility. Paying a bill on time, resisting the impulse to gamble a bonus check, or saving a modest amount for an emergency fund all create new emotional rewards, pride, security, and trust in oneself. These rewards are quieter than the intense thrills of gambling, but infinitely more sustainable. Over time, these emotionally grounded practices replace the volatile highs and lows of the gambling cycle. The practical tools of financial recovery, such as debt repayment plans, budgeting systems, and spending journals, are not merely organizational strategies. They are instruments of psychological repair. They teach the recovering gambler that money is not chaotic, mysterious, or uncontrollable. Money follows understandable rules, and those rules can be mastered. Each balanced checkbook and honored payment becomes a rehearsal in self-efficacy, re-establishing a sense of personal agency that gambling had long eroded. As financial stewardship strengthens, so does a broader sense of life stewardship. Recovering gamblers often find that as they learn to handle money wisely, they also make better choices in time management, relationships, health, and career. This cascading effect is no accident. It reflects the central principle that recovery is holistic. Regaining control over money is inseparable from regaining control over one's inner world. Responsibility in one domain spills into others, weaving together a new identity grounded in integrity rather than escapism. Despite this progress, the temptation to relapse financially never entirely disappears. Periods of stress, unexpected windfalls, or emotional upheaval can rekindle old illusions about money. This is why ongoing vigilance, community support, and continued financial mindfulness are essential. Stewardship is not a one-time achievement, but a daily practice, reinforced by rituals of budgeting, gratitude for sufficiency, and honest reflection about one's financial behaviors and beliefs. In the end, the journey from illusion to stewardship is one of the most liberating transformations available in gambling recovery. By seeing money clearly, neither demonizing it nor deifying it, the recovering individual reclaims their power. They no longer chase fantasy, they build reality. They no longer gamble their future. They invest in it, patiently, wisely, and with a growing sense of inner peace. In this way, the changing perception of money becomes a symbol of their deeper rebirth into a life of dignity and hope. Reframing money, cognitive and emotional shifts in gambling rehabilitation. In the process of gambling rehabilitation, one of the most critical and yet often overlooked transformations is the reframing of money. For those trapped in gambling addiction, money is rarely seen as a neutral resource. Instead, it becomes deeply entangled with emotional and cognitive distortions, representing hope, salvation, identity, and sometimes even self-worth. Rehabilitation requires not just abstinence from gambling activities, but a fundamental reshaping of how the individual thinks and feels about money itself. In the gambling mindset, money often becomes synonymous with potential escape. Each bet placed with money is not seen as a simple transaction, but as a high-stakes attempt to resolve overwhelming emotional burdens, debts, shame, or feelings of inadequacy. Cognitively, the gambler starts to believe in the fantasy that a single large win could fix everything, leading to distorted beliefs like, "I'm due for a win," or "the next time will be different." Emotionally, money becomes charged with a volatile mix of desperation, excitement, and fear. Recovery begins by interrupting these distorted associations. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a cornerstone in gambling rehabilitation, focuses heavily on identifying and restructuring the irrational beliefs tied to money. Through guided reflection and exercises, the recovering gambler learns to recognize magical thinking patterns, catastrophic expectations, and cognitive biases like the gambler's fallacy. Therapy helps to dismantle the illusion that money has mystical properties capable of delivering emotional redemption or absolution. Emotionally, the shift is equally significant. In active addiction, feelings about money fluctuate wildly. Euphoria during wins, despair during losses, shame when debts accumulate, and frantic hope when another bet is placed. Rehabilitation teaches emotional regulation techniques that decouple feelings of self-worth from financial outcomes. Rather than allowing a financial gain or loss to define personal value, the recovering individual learns to source self-esteem from consistent responsible behaviors, relationships, and intrinsic qualities. A major cognitive reframing in gambling rehabilitation involves restoring the instrumental view of money. Money must be repositioned as what it truly is, a practical, limited tool for meeting life's needs, not an emotional cure or an existential wager. Through exercises in budgeting, saving, and financial planning, recovering individuals practice treating money logically. Concepts like opportunity cost, financial stability, and delayed gratification become new anchors in their thinking, replacing the impulsive, emotionally charged decision-making of the past. Emotional shifts deepen as the recovering gambler experiences small but real victories. Paying a bill on time, saving a small amount of money consistently, or saying no to impulsive spending creates new emotional associations with money, ones rooted in pride, security, and self-respect rather than thrill-seeking or despair. Over time, these experiences retrain emotional expectations around money, cultivating a sense of peaceful neutrality rather than chaos. Another key transformation is the ability to tolerate financial uncertainty without resorting to gambling. In active addiction, any financial stress, a late bill, an unexpected expense, could trigger a panic response, leading to desperate gambling in a misguided attempt at rapid problem solving. Rehabilitation teaches distress tolerance, the ability to experience financial anxiety, sit with it, plan through it, and act prudently rather than impulsively. Financial discomfort no longer automatically demands a compulsive escape. Relapse prevention strategies are also built around the reframing of money. Recovering individuals are taught to anticipate high-risk financial situations like receiving an unexpected bonus, facing sudden debts, or dealing with emotionally charged spending urges, and to create concrete plans for these events. Having structured responses in place reduces the emotional reactivity around money and reinforces a proactive, empowered mindset. Over time, the cumulative effect of these cognitive and emotional shifts is transformative. Money gradually loses its emotional volatility and regains its proper place in the individual's worldview. It becomes a practical resource, a responsibility, and a reflection of inner stability, not a battlefield for unresolved hopes and fears. The individual no longer views financial challenges as existential threats, but as manageable parts of adult life requiring patience, planning, and resilience. Ultimately, reframing money in gambling rehabilitation is about reclaiming personal sovereignty. By restructuring the ways money is thought about and emotionally experienced, the recovering gambler liberates themselves from the invisible chains of magical thinking and emotional chaos. They no longer live at the mercy of chance or fantasy. Instead, they build a life of deliberate choices, grounded in reality, dignity, and a newfound peace with the financial aspects of existence. Financial re-education after gambling addiction. One of the most vital aspects of recovering from gambling addiction is financial re-education. Gambling addiction severely distorts an individual's relationship with money, often leaving behind not only emotional trauma, but also financial devastation. Recovery, therefore, must address not just stopping gambling behavior, but retraining the mind to handle money realistically, responsibly, and with self-respect. Financial re-education is not a supplementary part of healing. It is central to reclaiming autonomy and rebuilding a stable life. In active addiction, the concept of money becomes twisted beyond recognition. Money is no longer seen as a finite, practical resource. It is experienced as fuel for fantasy, a weapon of desperation, or a means of emotional escape. Many problem gamblers lose the basic skills of financial planning, saving, or budgeting because money was continually framed in terms of risk and reward, not in terms of necessity and stewardship. Financial re-education must begin by first re-establishing money's true nature as a limited and essential tool for supporting life's basic needs. The first phase of financial re-education often involves a brutally honest financial inventory. Recovering gamblers must account for debts, income, essential expenses, and any hidden financial obligations they may have accumulated during the course of their addiction. For many, this process is emotionally overwhelming, confronting them with the scale of the damage done. However, this transparency is critical. It is impossible to move forward responsibly without an accurate and complete understanding of one's current situation. Once the financial landscape is clear, recovering individuals must learn basic money management skills that they may never have mastered before or that they abandoned during addiction. This includes creating a realistic budget, distinguishing between needs and wants, setting up a debt repayment plan, and learning to prioritize long-term financial health over short-term gratification. Simple tools like budgeting apps, spreadsheets, and cash envelope systems are introduced to replace the impulsive, chaotic money habits of the past. Saving money becomes a key skill in financial re-education. For someone emerging from gambling addiction, the idea of setting aside money, rather than risking it, requires a complete psychological shift. Saving is framed not as deprivation but as empowerment. Even small savings goals, like building a $500 emergency fund, become symbolic victories, demonstrating that the individual can care for their future self. Consistent saving also reduces the financial crises that often acted as triggers for past gambling episodes. Debt management is another pillar of financial re-education. Many recovering gamblers are burdened with enormous debts, credit card balances, personal loans, even payday loans with predatory interest rates. In rehabilitation, individuals learn strategies such as the snowball method, paying off small debts first for psychological wins, or the avalanche method, paying off high-interest debts first to save money long-term. Working with a financial counselor or debt management service can also provide structure and reduce the emotional overwhelm of facing massive financial obligations. Just as important as the mechanics of money management are the emotional skills that underpin healthy financial behaviors. Financial re-education includes learning to manage urges, delay gratification, tolerate anxiety about money without acting impulsively, and experience financial success without self-sabotage. Cognitive behavioral tools are used to dismantle unhealthy beliefs such as "I'm bad with money" or "I'll never get ahead," replacing them with a growth mindset around financial responsibility and capability. Boundaries around money also become essential. Recovering gamblers are taught how to protect themselves financially by limiting access to large sums of cash, setting up automatic bill payments, avoiding easy money schemes, and seeking support before making large financial decisions. Protecting oneself from future financial temptations is not a sign of weakness, but a mark of wisdom, acknowledging the ongoing vulnerabilities that may persist even deep into recovery. Over time, financial re-education leads to the restoration of self-trust, one of the most precious things lost during gambling addiction. Every successfully followed budget, every paid bill, every savings deposit contributes to rebuilding the belief that I can manage my life. Financial re-education, therefore, is not simply about numbers. It is about identity transformation. It helps turn a person once trapped in impulsivity and chaos into someone who acts thoughtfully, plans wisely, and lives intentionally. Logical wins, or the avalanche method, paying off high-interest debts first to save money long-term. Working with a financial counselor or debt management service can also provide structure and reduce the emotional overwhelm of facing massive financial obligations. In the end, financial re-education after gambling addiction is a process of empowerment. It replaces fantasy with structure, recklessness with responsibility, and fear with confidence. The recovering individual not only repairs their bank account, but also rewires their relationship with themselves. Money becomes what it was meant to be, a means of support, freedom, and peace, no longer a source of danger or despair. In mastering money anew, the recovering gambler masters a new way of living. The psychological transformation of money in problem gambling recovery. The journey of recovery from problem gambling is not simply about stopping the behavior of betting. It is about undergoing a profound internal metamorphosis. Nowhere is this more evident than in the way recovering gamblers come to understand and experience money. In active addiction, money is not merely a means of purchasing necessities. It becomes an emotional substance, a proxy for hope, power, escape, and self-worth. In recovery, this distorted perception must be deconstructed and replaced with a healthier, grounded relationship with money. The psychological transformation of money is central to sustainable healing. In the depths of problem gambling, money is heavily mythologized. It is seen not for its practical value, but for its imagined potential, the promise of rescuing oneself from debt, shame, or personal failure. Every dollar represents a dream rather than a tool. This emotional inflation makes money volatile. Its presence or absence triggers extreme emotional reactions, ranging from euphoria to despair. In such a psychological state, rational decision-making around money becomes almost impossible, as it is governed by fantasy rather than fact. The early phase of recovery often begins with painful disillusionment. The gambler must confront the reality that money cannot perform miracles, solve existential problems, or offer instant redemption. This realization is deeply unsettling, often provoking grief, guilt, and anxiety. Accepting that money is simply a limited, neutral resource, not a magic wand, is a major emotional hurdle. Yet, it is precisely this confrontation that initiates the transformation, facing money without the haze of illusion. Cognitively, one of the first shifts in recovery involves decathecting, psychologically detaching, money from inflated emotional meanings. Through therapeutic interventions like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, individuals learn to spot and challenge distorted beliefs, such as one more big win will fix everything or losing money makes me worthless. These thought patterns are methodically replaced with healthier cognitions. Money is a tool for meeting needs, and my value is not determined by my financial status. Emotionally, the transformation is slower, but equally critical. Recovering gamblers must learn to regulate feelings of boredom, anxiety, and sadness without turning to risky financial behavior. Money is reassociated with emotions like security, stability, and self-respect rather than thrill, escape, or salvation. Small financial successes like sticking to a budget, paying a bill on time, or saving a modest amount begin to provide quiet emotional rewards. Over time, these positive reinforcements rebuild a healthier, more stable emotional relationship with money. Another major psychological transformation involves developing a sense of financial stewardship. Where once money was treated impulsively, grabbed, gambled, or squandered, it is now approached thoughtfully. Stewardship implies care, planning, and responsibility. The recovering individual begins to see themselves as a caretaker of their own resources, responsible not only to themselves, but often to family and community. This new identity as a steward replaces the gambler's previous identification with chaos, risk-taking, and loss. As financial behavior stabilizes, another psychological phenomenon occurs. Self-trust begins to be restored. During active gambling, individuals lose trust in their own ability to manage money wisely. Each relapse deepens this internal wound. In recovery, each act of financial responsibility, no matter how small, stitches that wound closed. Over time, individuals no longer dread payday or fear looking at their bank accounts. They develop confidence in their ability to make decisions that align with their long-term well-being. However, the transformation of money is not a one-time event. It is a continuous practice. Recovery programs teach that financial vigilance must be ongoing because old patterns can resurface during periods of stress, abundance, or emotional upheaval. Recovering gamblers often set up financial safeguards, limiting access to large sums, establishing accountability with trusted individuals, and maintaining regular financial check-ins. These strategies support the continued emotional neutrality of money. Ultimately, the psychological transformation of money leads to a deeper transformation of the self. Money no longer controls the individual's emotions, behaviors, or self-image. It occupies its rightful place, important but not ultimate, necessary but not defining. In learning to treat money with respect and balance, the recovering gambler simultaneously learns to treat themselves with respect and balance. Financial stability becomes both a mirror and a means of internal stability. In conclusion, the psychological transformation of money in problem gambling recovery is not simply about budgeting or debt management. It is about healing the emotional wounds that distorted money's meaning in the first place. It is about learning to see clearly, to plan wisely, to act responsibly, and to live peacefully. In the end, it is not just money that is rehabilitated, it is the human heart and mind. Money Through New Eyes, a gambler's journey of healing. In the early days of his recovery, money still haunted Daniel like a ghost from his past. It whispered promises of redemption, teased him with fantasies of one last miracle win. For years, money had been his drug, the key to euphoria, the tool of escape, the proof that he could outsmart his despair. Healing from gambling addiction meant more than stopping the bets. It meant learning to see money through completely new eyes. It meant transforming it from a fantasy into a foundation for real life. At the height of his gambling, Daniel didn't think of money as something neutral. Each paycheck wasn't a means to survive. It was fuel for another round of chasing losses and chasing dreams. Money was alive, electric, almost mythological. $100 wasn't groceries or rent. It was a ticket to imagined glory. And when he lost, as he so often did, money became a weapon of shame, battering his self-esteem. In this distorted reality, money lost its practical meaning and became a volatile symbol of hope and self-destruction. The first major step in Daniel's healing journey was confronting this illusion. In therapy, he was asked to write down everything he believed about money. The exercise shocked him. He realized he had placed onto money the burden of rescuing his pride, fixing his mistakes, and securing his worth. No wonder money always seemed to slip through his fingers. He wasn't using it to live. He was using it to fight battles that money was never meant to fight. The healing process demanded that he strip away the fantasies and reframe money for what it truly was. Gradually, Daniel began learning the practical skills he had neglected for so long: how to budget, how to prioritize, how to plan ahead without slipping into wishful thinking. At first, it felt dull, almost insulting. But over time, budgeting became an act of self-respect. Tracking every dollar wasn't a punishment. It was a declaration that his life mattered, that every resource he had deserved to be treated with care and dignity. Slowly, money lost its drama and became manageable, even calming. Emotionally, Daniel's relationship with money shifted from turbulence to trust. Wins and losses no longer defined his self-worth. Saving even a small amount each week filled him with a deeper pride than any jackpot ever had. Paying bills on time, seeing a savings account grow, these once boring tasks became milestones of healing. Money was no longer about chasing highs or avoiding lows. It was about building stability, something he had craved for years without knowing how to achieve it. There were setbacks, of course. Moments when old temptations surged. A sudden bonus at work, a stressful personal crisis. But Daniel had built new coping strategies. Instead of seeing extra money as play money or a chance to flip his luck, he saw it as an opportunity to reinforce his foundation, adding to his emergency fund, paying extra on debts, or investing in meaningful experiences like education or health. Money was no longer a game, it was a tool for life. As time passed, Daniel noticed another transformation. His identity was changing. He no longer saw himself as a reckless gambler trying to outwit fate. He began to see himself as a provider, a planner, a person capable of shaping his own future without relying on chance. Money mirrored this new identity. It reflected thoughtfulness, discipline, and hope grounded in reality, not fantasy. Community played a vital role in his healing. Regular meetings with fellow recovering gamblers, sessions with a financial coach, and honest conversations with family helped Daniel stay accountable. Celebrating small financial victories with people who understood the depth of his struggle made the progress feel real and sustainable. Recovery wasn't a lonely climb, it was a shared rebuilding of trust. Trust in himself, trust in others, trust in life itself. Looking back, Daniel understood that the real victory wasn't about how much money he had saved or how quickly he paid off his debts. The real victory was in how he saw money now. It was no longer a doorway to escape. It was no longer a symbol of his worth or his failure. It was simply a tool, silent, neutral, powerful, to help him live a life of purpose, connection, and dignity. In the end, Daniel's journey with money mirrored his larger journey of healing. He learned that true freedom wasn't found in the chaotic thrill of the next gamble. It was found in the quiet, steady choices of everyday life. Money, seen through new eyes, was not the master of his fate, but the servant of his dreams' real dreams, built slowly and surely, one careful step at a time. Beyond the bet, learning to respect money in recovery. Recovering from problem gambling is not simply about resisting the urge to place a bet. It is about transforming the very way one thinks, feels, and acts around money. In active addiction, money becomes a symbol of escape, excitement, and fantasy, stripped of its practical meaning. Recovery demands a profound shift, moving beyond the bet to develop a deep, sustained respect for money. This change is not just financial, it is emotional, psychological, and spiritual, touching the core of how a person relates to life itself. In the throes of gambling addiction, money is not seen as something to manage wisely, but as something to risk, to chase, to worship. Every dollar becomes a possibility, a potential key to erasing past mistakes, securing imagined future riches, or temporarily numbing emotional pain. The act of betting transforms money into an emotional object, fraught with hope, terror, and longing. Within this distorted framework, money is neither a tool nor a resource. It is a volatile agent in a dangerous game. Early recovery often confronts individuals with the harsh consequences of this attitude: depleted savings, mountains of debt, broken trust with loved ones, and profound internal shame. Facing the reality of financial wreckage is one of the most sobering moments in recovery. Yet, it is also the beginning of healing. It forces the recovering gambler to ask painful but necessary questions. What is money really? How did I lose sight of its true purpose? These questions lay the groundwork for a new relationship with money, one based on respect rather than exploitation. Learning to respect money begins with honesty. Recovery requires taking a clear, unflinching inventory of one's financial situation. Income, debts, expenses, and obligations must be written down, not avoided or minimized. This process can be deeply uncomfortable, but it is essential. Respecting money means respecting reality, not the fantasy of a lucky break or the delusion of endless second chances, but the hard truths of one's current financial life. Once reality is faced, recovery moves into the stage of responsibility. Creating a realistic budget becomes a way of honoring money's true nature. Each dollar is assigned a purpose: food, shelter, health, savings, and modest enjoyment. Financial planning ceases to be an optional chore and becomes a form of self-care. By treating money with care and intentionality, the recovering gambler begins to rebuild self-respect, one careful decision at a time. Emotionally, the recovering individual must rewire their associations with money. The old rush of adrenaline tied to gambling is slowly replaced by a quieter, more stable emotional reward: the satisfaction of paying bills on time, the pride of contributing to savings, the relief of living within one's means. These new emotional pathways are critical because they offer sustainable forms of gratification, ones that do not require risk, deceit, or self-destruction. Respecting money also involves setting boundaries. In recovery, individuals learn to protect themselves from financial relapse by creating safeguards: limited access to cash, accountability with trusted others, automatic payments, and avoiding high-risk environments. These boundaries are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom and maturity. They acknowledge the enduring vulnerability to old patterns and affirm the commitment to living differently. Over time, a deeper transformation occurs. Money is no longer seen through the lens of scarcity or desperation, but through the lens of stewardship and responsibility. The recovering gambler learns that having enough to meet needs, enough to live without constant fear, is far more precious than chasing endless abundance. Gratitude replaces greed. Stability replaces chaos. Money becomes what it was always meant to be: a supportive force, not a master. This journey is rarely linear. Setbacks happen, emotions flare, and the old pull toward magical thinking about money can resurface. But with continued vigilance, support, and humility, respect for money becomes deeply internalized. It becomes part of the recovering gambler's identity. I am someone who treats money, and therefore myself, with respect. In the end, Moving beyond the bet means moving beyond the fantasy that life's problems can be solved in a single roll of the dice or flip of a card. It means embracing the truth that real security, dignity, and fulfillment are built slowly, patiently, and consciously. By learning to respect money, the recovering gambler learns to respect life itself and, most importantly, their own worth within it. Money without magic, the sober view of a recovering gambler. In the world of active gambling addiction, money rarely holds its simple, everyday meaning. Instead, it becomes saturated with magical thinking, a charged substance believed to have the power to solve every problem, erase every mistake, and deliver ultimate fulfillment. For the gambler, money is no longer a neutral resource. It becomes a portal to imagined salvation. Yet, in the journey of recovery, one of the most profound changes is learning to see money without magic, to regard it soberly, realistically, and responsibly. At the height of addiction, money is more than currency. It carries an unbearable psychological load. It is hope, self-worth, excitement, and even survival. A handful of cash or a few digits in a bank account are not seen for what they are. They are fantasized as one big win away from solving life's emotional and financial crises. This fantasy projection onto money fuels endless cycles of chasing losses, making desperate bets, and sinking deeper into debt and despair. In recovery, this magical thinking must be carefully dismantled. It is not enough to merely stop gambling behaviors. One must also change the very framework through which money is perceived. Through therapy, reflection, and lived experience, recovering gamblers begin to understand money has no consciousness, no magical powers, no personal investment in their success or failure. It simply is a tool, a resource, a measure of exchange, nothing more and nothing less. The initial stages of seeing money without magic can be deeply uncomfortable. Stripped of its emotional charge, money might seem boring, even disappointing. The gambler must grieve the loss of the fantasy, the thrilling highs, the desperate hopes that once animated their relationship with finances. This grieving is healthy and necessary, for it clears the way for a grounded, sober understanding of financial reality, one built on facts, not dreams. Financial education becomes crucial at this point. In recovery, individuals learn to handle money concretely, budgeting, tracking expenses, planning for bills, saving for the future. These skills might seem mundane compared to the adrenaline of gambling, but they are revolutionary acts for someone reclaiming their life. Each responsible financial decision reinforces the truth. Stability, not magic, is the foundation of real freedom. Emotionally, the shift is just as important. Instead of allowing money to dictate self-esteem, recovering gamblers learn to regulate their feelings independently of financial gains or losses. Pride comes not from winning bets, but from following a budget. Joy is found not in sudden windfalls, but in steady, sustainable growth. Anxiety is addressed through planning and support rather than desperate risk-taking. This emotional neutrality around money is a hallmark of deep recovery. Another key aspect of the sober view is acceptance of limits. In magical thinking, money is infinite, always recoverable, always expandable if luck changes. In sober thinking, money is finite. Choices have consequences. Spending recklessly today may mean hardship tomorrow. Learning to live within one's means is an act of respect for reality and for oneself. It reflects maturity, patience, and a deep understanding of the true nature of cause and effect. Boundaries around money are also crucial. Recovering gamblers often set up external protections to reinforce their new, sober relationship with money, automatic transfers to savings, limiting cash on hand, involving accountability partners in large financial decisions. These are not signs of weakness, but wise strategies for maintaining clarity and preventing relapse into old patterns of magical thinking and impulsivity. Over time, this new relationship with money becomes internalized. What once felt foreign or forced, budgeting, saving, saying no to risk, begins to feel natural. The recovering gambler realizes that there is profound peace in financial predictability. Life becomes less about dramatic swings of fortune and more about steady progress toward meaningful goals. Money, seen soberly, becomes a quiet ally rather than a dangerous master. In the end, the recovering gambler's greatest victory is not simply abstaining from gambling, but learning to live in a world where money no longer holds them hostage. By letting go of the illusions and embracing the sober truth of what money is and is not, they reclaim not just their finances, but their very sense of self. Freedom lies not in magical thinking, but in the clear-eyed, steady, courageous stewardship of one's own life. Healing the financial wound, how recovery changes the meaning of money. Recovery from gambling addiction is not solely about abstaining from placing bets. It is a profound act of inner repair. One of the deepest wounds left by gambling is financial, not just in the practical sense of lost savings or mounting debts, but also in the emotional and psychological meaning attached to money. Healing the financial wound involves more than paying off bills or restoring a credit score. It demands a complete redefinition of what money represents in a person's life. In active addiction, money is distorted into something larger than life. It becomes a magical solution, an emotional escape hatch, or a symbol of worthiness. Each dollar wagered carries with it a complex mix of desperation, fantasy, hope, and denial. Money ceases to be a neutral resource for supporting life and transforms into a volatile force that exacerbates emotional volatility and deepens feelings of inadequacy and loss. In this state, financial harm is not just about losing money, it is about losing oneself. The beginning of recovery often forces a painful confrontation with the scope of the financial damage. Debts may be overwhelming, savings depleted, and financial trust with family members or partners shattered. Many recovering gamblers initially feel paralyzed by shame and hopelessness. Yet facing this financial wreckage is essential. Only by seeing the wound clearly can healing begin. It requires brutal honesty, accountability, and a willingness to face reality without the protective haze of denial or magical thinking. As recovery progresses, the meaning of money begins to shift. Instead of representing possibility and escape, money starts to symbolize stability and self-respect. Small financial victories, setting a budget, saving a modest amount, paying a bill on time, take on enormous emotional significance. Money is no longer viewed as a means to chase fantasies, but as a tool for building a life grounded in responsibility, dignity, and long-term well-being. Each financial decision becomes part of a broader act of self-healing. Cognitively, recovering individuals learn to dismantle distorted beliefs about money. They confront thoughts like, "I can win it back," or "I need a big score to be okay," and replace them with healthier perspectives. "I can build security gradually," or "My value is not determined by my bank balance." Financial education, learning about budgeting, saving, and investing becomes a psychological intervention, correcting years of impulsive, emotion-driven financial behaviors. Emotionally, money becomes less charged. Instead of triggering intense highs and lows, it is increasingly experienced with neutrality. A paycheck is not a ticket to gamble but a resource to meet real needs. A savings account is not just a number but a symbol of recovery, resilience, and planning. Healing the financial wound means detaching self-worth from financial status and learning to find pride in the discipline, patience, and foresight required to manage money well. Importantly, recovery also involves addressing the relational aspects of financial healing. Trust with loved ones must often be rebuilt slowly through consistent, responsible action. Financial transparency, sharing budgets, reporting on debts, seeking input on major financial decisions becomes part of rebuilding broken relational bridges. Healing the financial wound is thus not just a solitary task, but a communal one, requiring honesty, humility, and sustained effort over time. As financial skills develop, a deeper internal change occurs. Money becomes aligned with values. In active addiction, values like honesty, generosity, and prudence are often compromised in the pursuit of gambling wins. In recovery, money is used in ways that reflect authentic priorities, caring for family, supporting charitable causes, investing in education or health. This realignment restores integrity, allowing the recovering individual to feel at peace with how they earn, save, and spend. Of course, healing the financial wound is not a straight path. Setbacks are common. Unexpected expenses, emotional triggers, the temptation to fix financial problems quickly through risky decisions. Yet every challenge faced soberly reinforces the transformation. Each time the recovering individual chooses responsibility over fantasy, patience over desperation, they reinforce a new meaning for money, one grounded in reality, respect, and hope. Ultimately, recovery changes the meaning of money from a dangerous illusion to a practical blessing. It transforms money from a source of destruction into a source of stability and peace. Healing the financial wound is symbolic of the larger healing taking place within, a return to self-trust, a restoration of dignity, and the quiet, powerful ability to live life without the need for escape. In learning to treat money with respect and balance, the recovering gambler learns, most importantly, how to respect and balance themselves. From risk to responsibility, the new relationship with money in recovery. For a person trapped in gambling addiction, money often symbolizes risk, excitement, and escape. In the throes of compulsive gambling, money ceases to be a stable resource and instead becomes a tool for chasing impossible dreams and fleeting emotional highs. Recovery, however, demands a radical reorientation. The journey from risk to responsibility marks one of the deepest and most profound shifts a recovering gambler must undertake, transforming their relationship with money from reckless endangerment to careful stewardship. During active addiction, financial decisions are governed by impulsivity and distorted thinking. Each dollar is seen not for its intrinsic value, but for its potential to multiply, to fix problems, erase shame, or deliver a life-changing jackpot. This risky attitude creates a cycle of desperation, loss, and escalating bets. The very nature of money is altered. It becomes an unstable, emotionally loaded force that feeds anxiety, fantasy, and self-destruction. Recovery forces a confrontation with this distorted view. No longer can money be a game or an escape. It must be reclaimed as a tool for living, soberly, wisely, and deliberately. One of the first steps in establishing responsibility is facing financial reality without illusions, assessing debts, tracking expenses, and recognizing past financial harms. This requires painful honesty and the willingness to abandon magical thinking that promises easy solutions through luck or risk-taking. Once reality is faced, practical skills must be developed. Budgeting becomes central to the new relationship with money. Instead of treating income as fluid and available for impulsive use, every dollar is given a job to cover necessities, pay off debts, build savings, and prepare for future needs. Financial plans become lifelines that create security, predictability, and long-term vision. They replace the frantic, chaotic management styles that gambling once reinforced. Emotionally, recovering gamblers learn to break the link between money and emotional volatility. In the past, sudden wins or losses could swing their emotional state wildly. Now, the goal is emotional neutrality. Whether facing an unexpected expense or receiving a bonus, the recovering individual responds with calm, planned action rather than impulsive reactions. Responsibility involves emotional regulation, treating money as neither a threat nor a thrill, but as a practical element of daily living. One critical feature of this new relationship is the ability to delay gratification. Gambling addiction thrives on immediate reward, the rush of the win, the escape of the bet. Recovery demands cultivating patience, the ability to save slowly, pay down debts month by month, and resist the temptation of risky shortcuts. Financial responsibility is built on small, repeated actions, not dramatic gambles. Over time, this builds not only wealth but deep internal resilience. Setting healthy financial boundaries is another essential aspect of the new relationship. This might mean limiting access to large sums of cash, avoiding high-risk environments, or seeking accountability with trusted mentors or family members. These boundaries protect the recovering individual from falling back into old risk-based behaviors. They signal respect for one's vulnerability and a proactive commitment to staying aligned with responsible values. Through consistent practice, responsibility begins to feel natural rather than forced. What once seemed restrictive, budgeting, saving, saying no to risk, now feels liberating. The recovering gambler experiences freedom not through financial gambling, but through knowing they can meet their needs, plan for their future, and face life's uncertainties without panic. This sense of financial empowerment replaces the false sense of control that gambling once offered. Importantly, the shift from risk to responsibility is not just about managing money, it is about reclaiming a larger sense of personal agency. It reflects a maturing view of life itself, understanding that security, dignity, and peace are built, not won. Money, seen through the lens of responsibility, becomes a mirror of this deeper personal growth. It symbolizes groundedness, foresight, and respect for oneself and for reality. Ultimately, moving from risk to responsibility transforms more than bank accounts. It transforms lives. In learning to treat money with care and intention, recovering gamblers rebuild self-trust, mend relationships, and create a future based not on hope for luck, but on commitment to steady, meaningful action. Money no longer controls them, they control money, and through it, they reclaim their right to live a life of stability, purpose, and quiet triumph. Building a healthy relationship with money after gambling addiction. Recovering from gambling addiction is not just about ceasing the act of betting. It involves rebuilding an entirely new relationship with money. In active addiction, money becomes a charged, unstable force, representing risk, fantasy, self-worth, and often escape. After addiction, it is crucial to heal this fractured relationship and develop a healthier, more respectful view of money. Building a new relationship with finances is a profound part of rebuilding trust in oneself and constructing a life based on stability rather than chaos. During active gambling, money tends to be viewed through the lens of opportunity and desperation rather than necessity and planning. A gambler often sees each dollar not as a means to meet real needs, but as a chance to change their circumstances instantly. This association detaches money from its ordinary, practical function and instead imbues it with magical, unrealistic properties. Recovery begins when the gambler realizes that money must be returned to its proper place, a neutral tool, not a fantasy or emotional crutch. The first step in building a healthier relationship is facing the financial facts honestly. Recovery demands a complete and courageous financial inventory. How much money has been lost? What debts are owed? What obligations have been neglected? Although this process can be painful and may trigger feelings of shame and regret, it is essential for dismantling denial and beginning the work of true financial healing. Honest reckoning provides the solid ground needed to start over responsibly. Once the financial truth is acknowledged, recovering gamblers must learn basic financial management skills that may have been eroded or never fully developed during years of addiction. Budgeting, setting financial goals, tracking expenses, and distinguishing needs from wants are foundational practices. These techniques not only support financial recovery, but also nurture emotional stability by creating predictable structures in daily life. Emotionally, building a healthy relationship with money involves breaking old associations and creating new ones. In the gambling mindset, money was tied to excitement, hope, and redemption. In recovery, money must instead become associated with calmness, responsibility, and security. Celebrating small milestones like saving a set amount, paying down a debt, or sticking to a budget helps create positive emotional experiences around money. Over time, these experiences replace the destructive emotional highs and lows once tied to financial wins and losses. Another crucial element is accepting gradual progress. Gambling fosters an unrealistic craving for instant results. Recovery teaches the value of slow, steady progress. Building savings, repairing credit, and restoring financial stability do not happen overnight. By embracing patience, recovering gamblers learn to find satisfaction in consistency rather than sudden, dramatic change. The journey itself becomes a reward, teaching endurance, perseverance, and hope based in reality. Setting financial boundaries is also key. To protect against relapse and impulsive financial behavior, recovering individuals often need to create firm safeguards, setting spending limits, restricting access to credit cards, involving trusted friends or family members in major financial decisions, and automating savings and bill payments. These boundaries do not indicate weakness. They demonstrate wisdom and self-respect, honoring the ongoing work of healing and growth. Trust must also be rebuilt, both internal trust, trusting oneself with money again, and external trust, earning back the trust of loved ones harmed by financial consequences of gambling. Rebuilding trust requires consistent, responsible financial behavior over time. Every successful budgeting month, every paid debt, and every transparent financial conversation becomes a brick in the rebuilding of relational bridges and personal confidence. Over time, the recovering individual begins to experience money not as a source of stress or fantasy, but as a source of peace and empowerment. Money is seen clearly as a resource to meet needs, support dreams responsibly, and ensure long-term security. No longer an emotional trigger or a weapon of self-sabotage, money becomes something to steward wisely and gratefully. Ultimately, building a healthy relationship with money after gambling addiction is part of a larger spiritual and emotional recovery. It is a journey from chaos to order, from fantasy to reality, from desperation to dignity. Through financial healing, the recovering gambler reclaims their autonomy, stability, and self-worth, crafting a life that is rich not just in financial terms, but in meaning, responsibility, and genuine peace. Learning financial responsibility in gambling recovery. One of the most important milestones in gambling recovery is learning true financial responsibility. While abstaining from gambling is the foundational first step, rebuilding a healthy relationship with money is equally essential for long-term success. Financial responsibility means more than just paying bills or saving money. It signifies a deeper psychological transformation, one that involves patience, planning, emotional maturity, and self-trust. For many recovering gamblers, learning financial responsibility is both a new skill and a profound act of personal healing. During active addiction, money often loses its practical significance and becomes a vehicle for emotional escape, risk, and fantasy. Rather than being used to meet life's real needs, money is gambled away impulsively in hopes of a life-changing win. Financial management becomes chaotic or non-existent. As a result, recovering gamblers frequently face overwhelming debts, unpaid obligations, and a deep sense of financial instability when they first enter recovery. Accepting this reality without self-condemnation is the beginning of financial responsibility. The first step in learning financial responsibility is creating clarity. Recovery requires an honest and thorough financial inventory, listing all sources of income, all outstanding debts, all necessary living expenses, and all financial commitments. This process, while often uncomfortable, brings a critical sense of structure to a life that may have been ruled by impulsivity and avoidance. Clear awareness replaces the vagueness and denial that often enabled the gambling behavior in the first place. After gaining clarity, the next step is building a realistic budget. Budgeting teaches recovering gamblers how to allocate their income intentionally, ensuring that basic needs like housing, food, transportation, and healthcare are met before discretionary spending is considered. A sound budget acts as a roadmap, helping to prevent the chaos of impulsive decisions. Importantly, budgeting is not about deprivation. It is about empowerment, directing one's resources toward goals that truly matter, rather than squandering them on fleeting emotional urges. Saving money, even in small amounts, is another crucial aspect of financial responsibility. For many recovering gamblers, saving feels foreign because their previous mindset was geared toward instant gratification. Recovery teaches the discipline of delayed gratification, the understanding that building security and wealth takes time, consistency, and patience. Establishing an emergency fund, however modest, offers a psychological buffer against stress and reduces the temptation to seek quick-fix solutions through gambling. Emotional regulation is intimately tied to financial responsibility. Gambling often serves as a maladaptive coping mechanism for dealing with stress, anxiety, boredom, or depression. In recovery, individuals learn healthier ways to manage emotions without involving financial risk. When money is no longer used to solve emotional discomfort, spending decisions become more rational, planned, and value-driven. Emotional stability, therefore, becomes a crucial foundation for responsible financial behavior. Another key part of learning financial responsibility is rebuilding trust, both internal trust and trust with others. Active gambling often damages relationships with family members, friends, and institutions like banks or creditors. Recovery demands a consistent demonstration of responsible financial behaviors over time. Paying bills on time, communicating openly about financial decisions, and following through on repayment plans are acts that slowly rebuild credibility and heal broken trust. Learning to set boundaries around money is also vital. For example, avoiding environments where large sums of cash are accessible, setting spending limits, and involving accountability partners can protect against impulsive behaviors. Financial responsibility includes recognizing personal vulnerabilities and proactively creating systems to manage them. Far from being restrictive, these boundaries offer freedom, the freedom to live without the constant risk of relapse. As recovery deepens, financial responsibility evolves from a set of tasks into a new way of being. Managing money wisely no longer feels like a burden. It becomes an expression of self-respect and maturity. Financial planning, saving for the future, and meeting obligations become sources of pride, security, and peace. Money is no longer a source of fear or temptation. It becomes a quiet, stable tool for living a meaningful and fulfilling life. Ultimately, learning financial responsibility in gambling recovery is about reclaiming agency. It marks the transition from living in reaction to emotional impulses to living intentionally with foresight and integrity. Through consistent financial practices, recovering individuals not only repair their material lives, but also build inner resilience, dignity, and a sense of mastery over their future. In this way, learning financial responsibility becomes a cornerstone of a life no longer ruled by chance, but by conscious choice. From chaos to control, managing money after gambling. In the wake of gambling addiction, few areas of life are left untouched by chaos, and financial life is often the most shattered. Money, once viewed as a ticket to hope or excitement, becomes a source of fear, regret, and overwhelming stress. Managing money after gambling is not just a matter of technical skill. It is a deep, emotional journey from chaos to control. Recovery involves reclaiming financial order, but more importantly, reclaiming trust in oneself to live thoughtfully, responsibly, and securely. During active gambling, financial life is defined by impulsivity, secrecy, and instability. Budgets are ignored, debts are hidden, and decisions are made emotionally rather than rationally. Paychecks that should cover rent, bills, and savings are instead gambled away in moments of desperate hope. As a result, many gamblers find themselves in spirals of debt, foreclosure, broken credit, and profound financial insecurity. Money becomes not a tool for life, but a constant, gnawing reminder of failure and loss. The first step in moving from chaos to control is facing the full reality of the financial situation. This often means conducting a painful but essential inventory, listing all debts, obligations, income sources, and basic living expenses. Denial, rationalization, and avoidance must be stripped away. Facing these numbers without judgment is an act of courage. It marks the beginning of transforming financial life from something feared and avoided into something understood and addressed with maturity. With full awareness established, the next step is creating structure through a realistic and disciplined budget. Budgeting after gambling is not simply about assigning numbers. It is about relearning the value of money and planning for stability. Every dollar must have a purpose. Essential needs are prioritized: housing, utilities, food, healthcare. Discretionary spending is carefully allocated. Savings goals are set. The budget becomes not a punishment, but a lifeline, a map leading away from chaos. An important aspect of managing money after gambling is implementing protective measures. Because old patterns of impulsivity may linger, recovering gamblers often benefit from setting up safeguards, limiting access to large amounts of cash, using automatic bill pay, separating discretionary funds from essential accounts, and involving accountability partners. These measures are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom, recognizing the need to protect the hard-won progress of recovery. Emotionally, regaining control over money also means redefining its meaning. No longer a source of adrenaline or a solution to emotional distress, money becomes neutral, a tool for stability and responsible living. Emotional spikes tied to financial ups and downs gradually flatten out. Joy comes not from risk, but from security, seeing debts shrink, savings grow, and financial obligations consistently met. Money loses its dangerous emotional volatility and becomes an ally in building a peaceful life. Managing money successfully also requires learning patience and delayed gratification. Gambling addiction feeds the need for immediate rewards. Recovery requires shifting to long-term thinking, understanding that real wealth, financial, emotional, and spiritual, is built slowly through consistent effort. Every small financial success, paying a bill, resisting an impulse purchase, adding to savings, is a brick laid in the foundation of a new, stable future. Over time, financial control fosters internal control. As money becomes more manageable, so does life itself. Confidence grows. Anxiety diminishes. Self-respect strengthens. Money is no longer a mirror of chaos, but a mirror of competency. Recovering gamblers often find that managing their finances well spills over into better management of time, relationships, health, and personal goals, the external order reflecting deeper internal transformation. Yet the journey from chaos to control is not linear. There are setbacks, unexpected expenses, emotional triggers, moments of temptation. What matters is not perfection, but resilience. Returning to the budget, seeking support, recommitting to responsible action. These behaviors ensure that momentary setbacks do not spiral back into full-blown chaos. Managing money becomes a living, breathing practice of recovery itself, flexible, ongoing, and deeply affirming. Ultimately, managing money after gambling addiction is about reclaiming one's life from the grip of disorder. It is about saying, I am no longer ruled by chance, impulse, or fear. I choose to live intentionally. From the ashes of financial chaos, recovering individuals build a new, solid foundation, one budget, one payment, one responsible decision at a time. Through managing money wisely, they create not just financial security, but the inner peace that comes from living in harmony with reality. Financial freedom through gambling recovery. True financial freedom is not merely the absence of debt or the accumulation of wealth. It is the peace of mind that comes from knowing that money is no longer a source of chaos, fear, or self-destruction. For those recovering from gambling addiction, financial freedom takes on a deeper, more transformative meaning. It represents the ability to live responsibly, to plan intentionally, and to relate to money with clarity, respect, and balance. Through the journey of gambling recovery, financial freedom becomes not just a goal, but a symbol of personal liberation. During active addiction, money is rarely experienced as a tool for freedom. Instead, it becomes an emotional weapon, something to chase, to lose, to gamble away in desperate hopes of redemption. Financial life during addiction is marked by secrecy, impulsivity, debt, and often a complete loss of control. Many problem gamblers experience profound financial collapse, leaving behind a trail of unpaid bills, broken relationships, and mounting shame. Money, instead of empowering, imprisons the individual in cycles of fear and fantasy. The first step toward financial freedom in recovery is honest confrontation. Recovering gamblers must face the full truth of their financial reality: debts owed, income earned, obligations unmet. This act of honesty is painful but necessary, stripping away the illusions that fueled gambling behavior. Only by confronting financial reality can new patterns of responsibility and healing be established. Truth-telling becomes the foundation on which all future financial freedom rests. Once the truth is acknowledged, the process of rebuilding structure begins. A practical budget is not just a financial tool, it is a roadmap toward stability and empowerment. Prioritizing essential needs, tracking expenses, setting realistic goals, and planning for the future are the practical expressions of a deeper internal shift, the movement from impulsivity to intentionality. Every dollar is given a purpose, reinforcing the idea that financial freedom is built through countless small, wise decisions rather than one dramatic moment of luck. A crucial emotional transformation occurs as well. In recovery, money is no longer tied to emotional highs and lows. It loses its magical qualities and becomes neutral, a tool for living, not a vehicle for fantasy. Emotional regulation skills are developed so that stress, boredom, or anxiety no longer trigger financial recklessness. This emotional maturity is essential for sustaining financial freedom. True empowerment lies in the ability to manage both money and emotions wisely. Saving becomes a central pillar of this new relationship. In active addiction, saving feels impossible. Money is for gambling, for risking, for chasing. In recovery, saving represents a profound act of self-respect and forward thinking. Even small savings build psychological security, creating buffers against emergencies and offering proof that a different life is possible. Saving is not about hoarding. It is about creating a future based on stability, choice, and dignity. Financial freedom also involves rebuilding trust. Active gamblers often damage trust with family members, friends, and institutions. Recovery means not only managing money wisely, but being transparent and consistent in financial behavior. Rebuilding trust requires patience and humility, showing through actions, not promises, that new patterns are real and lasting. Trust becomes a currency of its own, restoring relationships and reinforcing self-respect. Another dimension of financial freedom is setting new goals aligned with deeper values. Where once the goal was to win big or erase shame, now the goals are rooted in meaning, providing for family, pursuing education, traveling wisely, supporting causes one believes in. Money becomes a servant of values, not a master of emotions. This shift transforms financial life into a life of purpose, where resources support dreams that are achievable, grounded, and truly fulfilling. Of course, the path to financial freedom is not linear. Challenges arise, unexpected expenses, emotional triggers, setbacks in income. What defines freedom is not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to respond to difficulty with wisdom, resilience, and planning. Financial freedom through gambling recovery is a living practice, requiring ongoing vigilance, flexibility, and self-compassion. Each responsible decision, each moment of patience, reinforces the foundation of a life no longer ruled by chance. Ultimately, financial freedom through gambling recovery is a mirror of deeper personal liberation. It is about far more than money. It is about reclaiming control over one's destiny, choosing reality over illusion, and building a life anchored in responsibility, peace, and hope. In learning to manage money wisely, the recovering individual learns to manage life itself, and in doing so, discovers a freedom more valuable than any jackpot ever promised. The new purpose of money in a recovering gambler's life. In the life of a recovering gambler, money undergoes a profound redefinition. During active addiction, money often served as a symbol of fantasy, desperation, and emotional escape. It was not respected as a tool for living, but was treated as a ticket to imagined salvation. In recovery, however, money must take on a new, healthier purpose. It becomes no longer a source of chaos and risk, but a foundation for security, dignity, and deliberate living. Understanding and embracing this new purpose is essential for long-term healing. At the height of gambling addiction, money was deeply entangled with emotional extremes. A handful of cash represented the possibility of a life-changing win, while financial losses triggered shame and panic. This emotional volatility robbed money of its neutral, practical meaning. Instead of being managed wisely, it was gambled impulsively in pursuit of fleeting highs. The recovering gambler must gradually dismantle these destructive associations and reframe money as something stable and manageable. The new purpose of money begins with meeting real, essential needs. Food, shelter, healthcare, transportation, these basic requirements, often neglected or endangered during addiction, now become the top priorities. Budgeting for necessities restores a sense of groundedness. In doing so, the recovering individual honors their basic human dignity, a clear signal that their well-being is more important than the empty promises of gambling. Beyond meeting needs, money in recovery also becomes a means of restoring order. Paying down debts, repairing damaged credit, and setting up systems for savings are not just financial acts, they are emotional acts of self-respect. Each responsible step helps heal the wounds of chaos left by addiction. Money becomes a tool for restoring trust, both internal trust, trusting oneself to act wisely, and external trust, rebuilding credibility with family, friends, and institutions. Saving money takes on an especially meaningful purpose in recovery. Saving is no longer about hoarding out of fear or fantasizing about a jackpot. It is about building buffers that protect against life's uncertainties. Even modest savings represent empowerment, proof that the recovering gambler can plan ahead, resist impulsivity, and prioritize their future self over immediate emotional gratification. Savings symbolize hope rooted in reality, not illusion. Another essential new purpose of money is supporting relationships and community. During active addiction, financial betrayal often isolates the gambler from loved ones. Recovery invites a new perspective, using money to contribute to family stability, meet responsibilities, and even give back to others. Whether helping with a child's education, supporting a charitable cause, or simply paying one's fair share of household expenses, money becomes a vehicle for connection and contribution rather than isolation and secrecy. Emotionally, the recovering gambler learns that money should no longer be a source of identity or worth. In the past, winning or losing money could define one's self-esteem from moment to moment. Now, money's emotional power is deconstructed. Financial ups and downs are seen through a sober lens as manageable events, not personal verdicts. Self-worth in recovery is rooted in character, relationships, and resilience, not in financial fluctuations. Planning for the future also becomes part of money's new purpose. Setting goals such as saving for education, homeownership, travel, or retirement gives financial life direction and meaning. Money supports long-term visions rather than momentary escapes. Dreaming is no longer about unrealistic jackpots, but about achievable, meaningful growth. Financial planning thus becomes an act of imagination grounded in responsibility. Challenges still arise, of course. Emotional triggers, financial temptations, and unexpected expenses can threaten to pull the recovering gambler back into old habits. But the new purpose of money as a tool for stability, connection, dignity, and growth provides a powerful anchor. Recovery is not about perfection. It is about persistence, about returning to healthy practices again and again, especially after setbacks. In the end, the recovering gambler discovers that money, once a source of profound destruction, can become a foundation for a better life. Its new purpose is simple but profound: to serve life, not rule it, to build peace, not turmoil, to express respect, not recklessness. In this way, the transformation of money mirrors the transformation of the individual, from chaos to calm, from fantasy to reality, from brokenness to strength. The silent battle, redefining money after gambling addiction. In the quiet hours of recovery, long after the last bet has been placed and the visible damage has been tallied, a deeper, less visible struggle begins: the silent battle of redefining money. For a person healing from gambling addiction, money is not just a currency or a ledger entry. It is a symbol, of power, escape, failure, hope, and often shame. Redefining its meaning is not a simple behavioral adjustment, but a profound internal reckoning, one that unfolds slowly, silently, and with great psychological weight. In the height of addiction, money was never just money. It became the gambler's lifeline and tormentor. Each dollar held the promise of rescue, the possibility of one big win that would fix everything. In this state, money transforms into a fantasy, an illusion that distorts reality and depletes judgment. Losses, no matter how large, only deepen the fantasy. I just need to try again. This cycle creates not just financial damage, but cognitive disorientation, a warped lens through which money is viewed. When gambling stops, the emotional charge around money doesn't vanish. The triggers, the shame, and the conditioned excitement often remain buried beneath the surface. The recovering gambler must now learn to encounter money without adrenaline, without magical thinking, and without emotional volatility. This is the silent battle, using money practically, seeing it clearly, and relating to it with intention, not as a savior or a source of self-worth, but simply as a resource. The first step in this battle is emotional detachment. Money must be redefined as a neutral tool, not an agent of identity or redemption. This requires cognitive restructuring, challenging old beliefs such as money can solve my pain or I'm only valuable when I have money. These beliefs are often unconscious, embedded in years of gambling thought patterns. Therapy, journaling, and support groups help bring them to light, allowing for honest, sometimes painful, reevaluation. Redefining money also means relearning its function. In recovery, individuals are taught to create budgets, track expenses, prioritize needs, and set achievable goals. These actions might seem basic, but for someone who once used money recklessly or avoided looking at their accounts, they are radical acts of healing. Budgeting becomes a declaration. I am choosing structure over chaos. I am choosing to be present. But this process is not linear. There are days when an unexpected expense or sudden income can trigger old urges. Payday can feel like a loaded gun. Windfalls can awaken fantasies of control. These moments demand vigilance. The silent battle is fought in how one chooses to respond to these internal cues, with impulsivity or with mindfulness, with secrecy or transparency, with relapse or resilience. Over time, as new behaviors are reinforced, the emotional power of money weakens. What was once volatile becomes manageable. The thrill of a gamble is replaced by the quiet pride of financial stability. A growing savings account, a paid-off credit card, or even a simple grocery list followed to plan becomes evidence of transformation. These modest victories are quiet, but they are profound. They prove that the individual is no longer at the mercy of compulsion, but is now reclaiming agency. Another dimension of redefining money is repairing relational trust. Money mismanagement often damages families, partnerships, and communities. In recovery, part of reshaping one's view of money involves using it responsibly in relational contexts, contributing fairly, being transparent about financial choices, and rebuilding credibility over time. Respect for money becomes tied to respect for others, reinforcing social accountability and emotional maturity. Eventually, the battle grows less intense. Financial decisions become more automatic, less fraught. The recovering gambler may never see money with complete neutrality. The past does not erase itself, but the relationship becomes healthier, more grounded, more realistic. The silence is no longer filled with dread or temptation. It becomes space for reflection, gratitude, and strength. In the end, redefining money after gambling addiction is not just about controlling spending or building savings. It is about reclaiming one's inner narrative. It is about choosing clarity over illusion, presence over avoidance, and meaning over impulse. It is a quiet revolution, waged daily and won gradually, not with noise or spectacle, but with the steady, powerful resolve to live with integrity and intention. Saving more than money, how recovery changes everything. Recovery from gambling addiction is often framed in terms of financial repair, restoring credit, paying down debts, and reestablishing a budget. But the truth is far more expansive. Recovery changes everything. It is not just about saving money. It's about saving time, dignity, relationships, purpose, and self-worth. When a person steps into recovery, they begin to reclaim parts of themselves and their lives that gambling quietly, but ruthlessly, eroded. The process of recovery is about learning to live again, wisely, honestly, and fully. In active addiction, the obsession with money dominates thought and behavior. Money is no longer a resource. It becomes the means to chase loss, the illusion of control, the escape from pain. A single dollar is not a neutral tool. It is psychologically loaded, symbolizing hope, fear, and the desperate need to fix what feels broken inside. This toxic attachment to money often isolates the gambler from life itself. Family is neglected, time is squandered, and emotional health is sacrificed for the next high or chance at redemption. When the gambling stops, the healing begins, and what's saved first is not money. It's presence. Time that was once devoured by planning bets, hiding transactions, or obsessing over wins and losses is now redirected into meaningful activity, conversations with loved ones, therapy sessions, acts of service, hobbies once forgotten. Recovery restores the ability to show up, not just physically, but emotionally, for oneself and for others. Saving time means regaining life. Recovery also saves relationships. Gambling addiction often corrodes trust with spouses, parents, children, friends, and employers. Financial secrecy leads to emotional distance. Promises are broken. Isolation becomes a way of life. In recovery, trust is not magically restored. It is slowly rebuilt through consistent, transparent, and responsible action. With each paid bill, each honest conversation, each moment of emotional accountability, relational bonds begin to mend. The recovering gambler learns that saving money is meaningless if connection is not restored. Equally important is the reclamation of self-worth. In addiction, self-esteem is repeatedly undermined by guilt, shame, and failure. Each relapse reinforces the belief, I can't change, or worse, I don't deserve better. Recovery flips that script. Small financial successes, sticking to a budget, resisting an urge, building an emergency fund, reinforce the emerging truth. I am capable. I am trustworthy. I am enough. What's being saved is not just financial stability, but the very core of personal identity. Moreover, recovery saves values. Gambling distorts priorities. Honesty, responsibility, and integrity are often sidelined in pursuit of the next win. But as the fog lifts in recovery, these values reemerge not abstractly, but as daily practices. Money is now spent in alignment with what matters most: family needs, health, education, acts of generosity. Financial decisions become expressions of the person one is becoming, not tools to escape who one was. One of the most overlooked aspects of what recovery saves is peace of mind. The internal war of addiction, the lying, the strategizing, the denial, creates constant mental noise. Recovery introduces structure, predictability, and calm. Knowing that bills are paid, that savings are growing, and that choices are rooted in reality rather than fantasy brings an inner stillness that is unfamiliar but profoundly healing. It is not flashy, but it is powerful. This mental peace is one of the most precious savings of all. Recovery also rescues future possibilities. In addiction, the future is a blur, a dangerous horizon that's feared or ignored. In recovery, the future becomes something worth planning for again. Saving money isn't just about dollars. It's about dreaming. The ability to save for a home, a child's education, a career goal, or retirement becomes possible again. Recovery transforms the future from something to escape into something to build. As recovery progresses, what's saved most fully is agency. The recovering gambler moves from being controlled by urges, shame, and external circumstances to someone who makes deliberate, values-based decisions. Financial recovery is a metaphor for personal recovery. It demonstrates the capacity to be disciplined, consistent, and forward-thinking. The ability to manage money responsibly becomes proof of broader transformation, from chaos to clarity, from addiction to autonomy. In the end, recovery saves far more than money. It saves what matters most: relationships, peace, self-respect, freedom, and life itself. What begins with financial healing becomes a total recalibration of the inner world. The recovering gambler is no longer defined by what was lost, but by what is steadily being reclaimed. That is the quiet miracle of recovery, not just salvaging savings, but saving oneself. Money, hope, and healing, a gambler's new story. For someone recovering from gambling addiction, the relationship with money is one of the most emotionally complex and deeply personal aspects of healing. In the past, money may have symbolized power, escape, adrenaline, and the elusive hope of a fresh start. It was the medium through which fantasies were pursued and inner pain was numbed. But in recovery, money takes on a new role, one that is quieter, steadier, and ultimately more profound. It becomes a pathway to hope, a structure for healing, and a central character in a new story being written, one of renewal, not ruin. At the height of addiction, the gambler's story is often one of loss and compulsion. Money is no longer a practical tool. It is loaded with emotional meaning. Every dollar becomes a wager, not just on a game, but on identity, self-worth, and emotional relief. Hope itself becomes distorted, tied to the next spin, the next hand, the next high. The chase becomes endless, and with each bet, the spiral deepens. The gambler isn't merely chasing money. They're chasing meaning, confidence, and control, all through a financial lens that has become warped. The first step in changing this narrative is acknowledging the emotional trauma tied to money. For many recovering gamblers, looking at a bank statement or opening a bill triggers shame, regret, or anxiety. But healing begins with truth. Facing one's finances honestly, without judgment, is a foundational act of recovery. It says, I am ready to stop hiding. I am ready to begin again. This shift, while painful, marks the start of the gambler's new story, one that is rooted in reality, not fantasy. As recovery unfolds, money becomes redefined. No longer a magical agent or a threat, it is reframed as a resource, neutral, manageable, and necessary. Budgets are created, debts are acknowledged, savings goals are set. These acts are more than just financial tools. They are acts of self-respect. Through careful planning and responsible spending, the recovering gambler experiences new forms of hope, not based on chance, but on consistency and effort. The healing power of these small victories cannot be overstated. Sticking to a budget for 1 month, paying down a credit card, or contributing to a savings account becomes proof that change is possible. These moments help rebuild confidence and interrupt the old narrative of failure. Every responsible financial decision reinforces a new internal dialogue. I can be trusted. I can care for myself. I am not who I used to be. Hope begins to return, not through a win, but through self-discipline and renewal. This new story is also about relationships, both with others and with oneself. In addiction, financial betrayal often damages trust with loved ones. Recovery means showing up financially, being transparent, contributing fairly, and restoring credibility over time. At the same time, the recovering gambler begins to repair the relationship with their own inner world. Money is no longer a battlefield of shame, but a field of learning, growth, and self-compassion. Emotional healing also emerges from learning to detach self-worth from financial status. In the gambler's old story, winning brought pride and losing brought despair. In the new story, self-worth is measured by integrity, not income. Money is a means to support values, care, stability, generosity, and purpose. Whether earning little or much, the recovering gambler learns to live within their means, to feel gratitude, and to find peace in sufficiency. Importantly, this journey is not linear. There are setbacks, unexpected expenses, emotional triggers, and moments of old temptation. But in the new story, setbacks are not endpoints. They are chapters, important ones, where resilience is tested and deepened. Hope, in this context, becomes enduring. It is no longer fragile, dependent on outcomes, but rooted in the knowledge that healing is possible even after failure. Over time, the gambler's new story becomes a testimony to others and to themselves. It says, "I was once overwhelmed by something that felt bigger than me, but I learned how to reclaim my power." It is a story of transformation, of learning how to live with balance, how to feel emotions without numbing them, and how to use money not for escape, but for expression of values, priorities, and love. In the end, money, hope, and healing become inseparable. The recovering gambler no longer sees money as the enemy or the savior, but as a companion on the journey. Through recovery, money regains its rightful place, a tool in service of life, not a trap. Hope becomes steady, not desperate, and healing, deep, ongoing, and hard-won, becomes the foundation of a new life, shaped by wisdom, dignity, and peace. Counting blessings, not chips, a journey through financial recovery. The journey of financial recovery after gambling addiction is not merely a return to solvency. It is a return to sanity, stability, and a life redefined by gratitude rather than risk. In the gambling world, chips are the currency of illusion. They disguise losses, inflate egos, and distance the gambler from the tangible value of money. In recovery, the chips are put away, and in their place comes a new habit, counting blessings. What begins as financial repair evolves into spiritual renewal. In the grip of addiction, money is rarely appreciated. It is bet, lost, borrowed, hidden, and often taken for granted. The gambler lives in a cycle of scarcity and desperation, fueled by fantasies of hitting it big and escaping the consequences of past decisions. In this mindset, blessings go unnoticed. Meals are rushed, relationships are strained, time is squandered. Recovery reframes these overlooked elements of life as sacred. The simple ability to pay a bill, eat a meal in peace, or show up for a loved one becomes a source of quiet joy. The first step in financial recovery is facing what was once avoided: unpaid bills, maxed out credit cards, and fractured trust. This stage is daunting, but it marks the beginning of healing. It teaches accountability, humility, and perseverance. Slowly, as debts are addressed and budgets are built, the recovering individual begins to reclaim something even more important than money, self-respect. With each responsible action, the focus shifts from what was lost to what can be rebuilt. Counting blessings means seeing financial responsibility not as a punishment, but as a privilege. Creating a budget, saving for a future goal, or buying groceries with earned income becomes a reminder of how far one has come. These ordinary tasks, once drowned out by the noise of addiction, now feel sacred. Recovery teaches that peace isn't found in a jackpot, it's found in knowing that rent is paid, the lights are on, and one's choices are aligned with values. This shift from gambling to gratitude also rewires emotional patterns. Where risk and reward once ruled the brain, now consistency and calm take their place. Emotional stability, once sacrificed for the highs and lows of chance, is slowly restored. The recovering gambler learns to celebrate not windfalls, but milestones: 3 months of budgeting, paying off the smallest debt, resisting an urge. Each of these becomes a new kind of victory. Part of counting blessings is recognizing the relationships that endure through recovery. Gambling often isolates. Financial secrets and broken promises drive wedges between partners, friends, and family. But in the process of financial recovery, relationships begin to heal. Shared meals, honest conversations, and mutual support return. Money is no longer a source of tension, but a tool for rebuilding trust and shared purpose. Spiritual insight often deepens in recovery as well. Counting blessings becomes more than a metaphor, it becomes a practice. The recovering gambler may begin keeping a gratitude journal, meditating on daily provisions, or volunteering as a way to give back. Through these acts, money loses its emotional volatility and becomes what it was always meant to be: a means, not a master. Recovery also teaches that blessings are not always financial. Time, health, sobriety, presence, and integrity become the new wealth. The recovering individual begins to ask not, "How much do I have?" but "How well am I living?" This change in mindset is the true marker of transformation. It's no longer about chasing more. It's about appreciating enough. Of course, the journey is not without struggle. There are still temptations, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But the practice of counting blessings becomes a source of resilience. It grounds the recovering gambler in reality, reinforces gratitude, and provides perspective when the old urges resurface. It turns the focus away from illusion and toward intention. In the end, financial recovery is not simply about balancing a checkbook. It is about balancing a life. It is about learning to live with integrity, to manage resources with care, and to find meaning in what once felt mundane. Chips are no longer the measure of worth. Instead, the recovering gambler counts peace, connection, and purpose, blessings that can't be bet away and that grow richer with every passing day. The true value of $1, lessons learned after gambling. For someone recovering from gambling addiction, $1 is no longer just currency. It becomes a symbol of awareness, accountability, and hard-won growth. In the gambling mindset, the dollar is distorted beyond recognition. It is no longer tied to the effort it takes to earn it or the real-life needs it could fulfill. Instead, it becomes a pawn in an emotional game, something to be risked, doubled, or lost in pursuit of a fantasy. But in recovery, the dollar regains its meaning. It becomes a measure not of luck, but of learning. During active addiction, $1 feels abstract. Whether in chips, electronic credits, or bills pulled from a wallet with trembling hands, it is rarely seen in its true form. A single dollar can represent the hope of turning everything around, or, after loss, just more fuel for chasing. The actual value of that dollar, its ability to buy a meal, pay part of a utility bill, or contribute to long-term goals, is ignored. In this illusion, The dollar becomes disconnected from reality, and so does the person holding it. The recovery journey begins with the painful awareness of how much has been lost, not just financially, but emotionally, relationally, and spiritually. But it also creates space for something else, understanding the true cost of every dollar wasted and the value of each one saved. When gambling stops, the dollar becomes a unit of recovery. It marks progress, patience, and a return to integrity. Each dollar is now counted, budgeted, and respected because it reflects effort, not just spending power. The first time a recovering gambler buys groceries with a paycheck instead of a credit card or impulse cash is often more emotional than expected. That simple act is profound. It represents a shift from self-sabotage to self-care. The recovering individual begins to understand. A dollar isn't a bet. It's a building block. It can feed a family, reduce a burden, or move one step closer to financial peace. This new respect brings a quiet sense of pride that gambling never could. Saving money also takes on new meaning. In addiction, saving felt irrelevant. Why save when one win could supposedly change everything? In recovery, saving becomes sacred. Even a small emergency fund represents security, planning, and maturity. It becomes a psychological safety net, reinforcing the belief that the individual is capable of caring for their future self. The lesson is clear. $1 saved is worth more than 1,000 gambled and lost. One of the most difficult lessons involves delayed gratification. Gambling thrives on immediacy, the quick fix, the adrenaline rush, the momentary thrill. Recovery teaches the opposite. Waiting, planning, and resisting impulsive spending develop into virtues. The recovering gambler learns that joy does not come from sudden, risky reward, but from the steady accumulation of small, wise choices. A dollar is no longer something to escape with, it becomes something to build with. Through this process, the dollar also transforms into a vehicle of trust. Trust with oneself that money will not be abused. Trust with others that bills will be paid, contributions will be made, and financial responsibility will be taken seriously. Rebuilding financial trust with loved ones after gambling addiction is one of the hardest parts of recovery, but also one of the most meaningful. Each dollar spent wisely is a step toward healing fractured relationships. Another powerful lesson is humility. In the past, large bets and high-stakes risks may have felt like power and control. But now it is the small, intentional financial decisions that hold the most power. Saying no to an unnecessary purchase, choosing needs over wants, or helping someone else in need teaches not just financial wisdom, but moral courage. These choices reflect a new inner strength rooted not in ego or illusion, but in self-respect. The true value of a dollar becomes especially apparent in moments of reflection. Looking back, the recovering gambler sees how much time, energy, and emotion were poured into chasing something that money could never buy: peace of mind, self-worth, connection. In recovery, the dollar regains its value not only as a tool, but as a symbol of choice, the power to choose presence over avoidance, structure over chaos, and healing over harm. In the end, the dollar becomes a mirror of transformation. It no longer commands the gambler's emotions, nor is it wasted on the altar of fantasy. It is honored, not idolized, as part of a healthy life. The recovering individual learns that a dollar, used wisely, can restore more than finances. It can restore dignity, purpose, and the quiet, steady joy of knowing that life, when lived with intention, is worth far more than any jackpot ever promised. A recovering problem gambler often sees money very differently from how they once did, and very differently from how non-gamblers typically do. Here's a deep explanation. 1. money as a tool, not an emotional experience. Before recovery, money is often experienced by a problem gambler not just as a medium of exchange, but as emotionally charged, associated with hope, fear, thrill, desperation, or relief. In recovery, they learn to reframe money as a neutral tool, a way to meet basic needs, not a way to achieve emotional highs or rescue themselves from emotional lows. Money becomes practical rather than magical. Example: where once $100 might have been seen as a chance to win big, it is now seen as groceries for the week. The pre-recovery emotional distortion of money. For a person trapped in problem gambling, money becomes emotionally distorted. It is no longer simply a neutral medium of exchange, i.e., something used to obtain goods and services, but is psychologically infused with heightened emotions and unconscious needs. Each dollar is perceived not for its objective value, but for its potential, the imagined gateway to something greater. Hope. Money becomes a ticket out, the belief that with a single win, all life problems, debt, shame, stress, can vanish. Fear. Losing money induces terror not just because of financial loss, but because it symbolizes losing the chance to change one's life. Thrill. Handling money, placing bets, seeing stacks of chips, making large wagers, generates a dopaminergic surge, a chemical high, where risk itself becomes addictive. Desperation. Money represents the last thread, holding back total collapse, a desperate attempt to reclaim control. Relief. A win temporarily washes away the crushing tension of debts and losses, falsely proving that salvation is still possible. Thus, in active addiction, money is deeply enmeshed with emotional regulation. It becomes a substitute for security, self-esteem, excitement, and even identity. Rather than being a static resource, it is seen as dynamic, magical, and transformational, charged with nearly mythic possibilities. The shift during recovery, reframing money. In recovery, one of the profound cognitive and emotional shifts is redefining money as a tool, not an emotional extension of one's inner world. Through therapy, financial education, 12-step programs, such as Gamblers Anonymous and lived experience, recovering gamblers gradually deconstruct the magical thinking surrounding money. They begin to see money has no intention, no destiny, no magic. It does not want to grow, disappear, or save them. It is inert, simply pieces of paper, digital entries, or coins with agreed-upon purchasing power. Practically, this reframe involves treating money as a means of meeting needs, food, shelter, healthcare. A means of planning for the future, saving, budgeting. A means of participating responsibly in society, paying bills, taxes, obligations. The emotional charge is gradually stripped away. Money ceases to be a drug or an emotional rescue fantasy and becomes something more boring but also safer. Practical example explained. Before recovery, imagine a problem gambler is handed $100. To them, it is not $100. Instead, it feels like a chance, an opportunity to flip it into $1,000 at the casino or online sports betting. It is potential energy waiting to explode. The mind immediately jumps to excitement, tension, possibilities. After recovery, the same $100 is viewed soberly and objectively. It might represent 1 week's groceries for a family, a utility bill payment, a contribution to a savings goal. Basic necessities, not gambling opportunities. The fantasy overlay has been peeled away. The emotional intoxication is gone. What remains is realistic, grounded, conscious management. Deeper psychological layer. Symbolic death of the fantasy self. At a profound psychological level, reframing money this way symbolizes a deeper shift. It reflects the death of the fantasy self, the part of the gambler that believed in magical rescue, instant transformation, or one big win stories. Accepting money as a neutral tool requires mourning the fantasy and embracing reality, with all its limitations, disciplines, and responsibilities. It is a loss of the illusory omnipotence, I can beat the system, and an entry into humility, I need to work, budget, and live within reality. This loss, while painful, becomes the cornerstone of true healing. Summary. In recovery, the recovering gambler undergoes a profound cognitive and emotional transformation, shifting from seeing money as an emotional elixir to regarding it as a neutral, practical tool. This reframe is not merely about financial literacy, it reflects a deeper psychological restructuring, away from magical thinking toward mature, grounded self-management. Would you also like me to expand this even further by linking it to neurobiology, particularly the shift from dopaminergic reward circuits to prefrontal cortical regulation in recovery? It's fascinating how the brain itself changes in this reframe. Glowing star. 2. Money as a responsibility, not a weapon. During active addiction, money can become a weapon against oneself, a way to engage in self-destruction or attempt quick salvation. In recovery, money is reinterpreted as a responsibility, something to plan, track, protect, and respect. Example. A recovering gambler may start using strict budgets, savings plans, and financial counseling, treating financial health with the same seriousness as physical health. Of course, here's a full, deeper expansion of your second point. Money as a responsibility, not a weapon. The role of money during active gambling, a self-inflicted weapon. In the throes of problem gambling, money is often unconsciously weaponized against oneself. Rather than using money to nurture survival, security, and growth, the gambler uses money in ways that escalate harm, chasing losses with larger bets, risking rent money, liquidating savings accounts, create instability, sabotaging financial foundations, destroying credit, accumulating overwhelming debts. Increase self-loathing. Each financial failure intensifies feelings of guilt, shame, and self-disgust. Enable emotional dissociation. Reckless spending acts as a way to numb, detach, or flee from deeper emotional pain. Thus, money becomes an instrument of self-destruction, like giving oneself small, cumulative wounds with every impulsive bet or gambling away life necessities. Paradoxically, it can also be used as a fantasy weapon for salvation. I'll fix everything this time if I just win big. Thus, the gambler swings between self-attack, losing, and self-illusion, dreaming of miraculous wins, perpetuating an endless cycle of psychological injury. In this warped frame, money is not simply mismanaged, it becomes an active means of personal harm. The shift in recovery, money as responsibility. In recovery, one of the most important psychological and behavioral shifts is the redefinition of money as a responsibility, a sober, deliberate trust entrusted to the individual. The recovering gambler begins to see money as something that must be planned. Conscious decision-making replaces impulsivity. Every dollar is assigned a role: housing, food, transportation, savings rather than left to chance or whim. Tracked. Accountability systems are introduced, budgeting apps, spending journals, financial meetings with sponsors or therapists to monitor inflow and outflow. Protected. Financial boundaries are established. Automatic withdrawals for savings, restricted access to large sums, and avoidance of high-risk environments are part of a protective shield. Respected, money is viewed with care and mindfulness. Even small sums are not treated lightly because they represent earned effort, not gambling chips. This transformation from self-sabotage to self-trust is at the heart of financial recovery. Money management is not just a technical skill. It becomes a symbol of maturity, self-respect, and stewardship. Practical example explained. Before recovery, imagine a problem gambler receives their paycheck. Instead of allocating it responsibly, they might rush to the casino or betting site, spend emotionally, trying to flip their paycheck into a fortune, leave themselves unable to pay rent, car bills, child support, or groceries, feel overwhelming shame and fear afterward, reinforcing a cycle of impulsive relief-seeking. After recovery, that same paycheck is treated with sacred seriousness. The recovering gambler might immediately deposit a portion into savings, schedule automatic bill payments, follow a written monthly budget, set aside safe, discretionary spending money, meet regularly with a financial counselor or recovery sponsor for financial check-ins. The difference is not just in behavior, it is in identity. They now see themselves as financial caretakers, not gamblers playing with their own survival. Deeper psychological layer, rebuilding the inner trustee. At a symbolic level, treating money as a responsibility mirrors the rebuilding of the inner trustee. In active addiction, the gambler becomes untrustworthy to themselves. They cannot rely on their future self to protect today's earnings. They betray their own basic needs impulsively. Recovery involves painstakingly restoring inner trust, dollar by dollar, decision by decision, through consistent, responsible action. Each act of careful money management whispers, I can trust myself again. I deserve stability. I am capable of stewardship, not sabotage. This psychological restoration is as important as the financial repair. Summary. In active addiction, money becomes a weapon of self-destruction, reinforcing cycles of harm, fantasy, and shame. In recovery, money is reclaimed as a responsibility, symbolizing self-respect, planning, protection, and emotional maturity. Managing money wisely is not just about dollars, it is about restoring trust in oneself and living in alignment with reality rather than fantasy. 3. Money is finite, not infinite. Problem gambling promotes an illusion that money is infinitely regeneratable. I can always win it back. There's always another shot. Recovery demands confronting reality. Money is finite. Once spent or lost, it requires real, sustained effort to rebuild, not another roll of the dice. Example. Rather than believing a loss can be recovered by more risk-taking, a recovering gambler accepts losses soberly and plans around them. 4. Money as a mirror of recovery. In recovery, money becomes a symbol of stability and self-care. Being able to manage money wisely often reflects progress in deeper areas: self-control, delayed gratification, emotional regulation, and self-respect. Example. Small acts like paying bills on time, maintaining a savings account, or saying no to impulsive purchases become victories in self-mastery. 5. Money as potential danger. Many recovering gamblers are also taught to respect money's potential to trigger relapse. Large amounts of unstructured money, like a bonus, tax return, or inheritance, can be psychologically risky, reigniting fantasies of just one more time. Thus, they may set preemptive safeguards, automatic deposits into savings, limited cash on hand, accountability with trusted people. Example. Instead of cashing a large check and holding it, a recovering gambler may directly apply it to debts or savings under supervision. In summary, a recovering gambler learns to see money not as a fantasy, thrill, or weapon, but as a neutral resource requiring respect, structure, and care. Certainly. Here is a formal, expanded version of your disclaimer suitable for inclusion in a professional presentation or publication. Disclaimer. The content presented herein by the Angel Wing, LLC is intended solely for educational and informational purposes. It is not designed to serve as a substitute for professional counseling, clinical treatment, psychiatric evaluation, medical advice, or the diagnosis of any physical, mental health, or substance use disorder. Participants and readers are strongly encouraged to seek guidance from licensed healthcare providers, mental health professionals, or certified addiction specialists for the diagnosis or treatment of any personal health concerns. Please note that the development, organization, and composition of this presentation have been supported by advanced artificial intelligence platforms, including Google Gemini Advanced and OpenAI's GPT-4o. While every effort has been made to ensure clarity, accuracy, and alignment with best practices, the inclusion of AI-generated content necessitates an additional layer of discretion and critical evaluation on the part of the audience. By engaging with this material, the viewer acknowledges that the Angel Wing, LLC is not operating in a clinical capacity and that no therapeutic relationship is established through participation in or review of this presentation. This publication is copyrighted. Copyright all rights are reserved. The author extends profound gratitude to the AI programs, GPT-4o, available at chat. OpenAI.com and Gemini 1.5 Pro, for their instrumental role in providing critical reference materials during the development of this book. The efficiency of the research process was significantly enhanced by the capabilities of GPT-4o and Gemini 1.5 Pro. It is imperative to acknowledge that the research was fundamentally guided by the author's original concepts. These concepts were inputted into AI programs, and the resulting output was meticulously reviewed. Following the author's approval, the refined output was integrated and edited, as appropriate, into the main body of the text. For any inquiries regarding this research methodology, please direct your communication to the author. Please be aware, when quoting from this book in other publications, presentations, or various forums, it is imperative to give proper attribution to the source. In light of the copyright protection afforded to this book, the contents contained within are not classified as public domain. Consequently, the replication of any material from this book is expressly prohibited, except as permitted under the principles of fair use law. For additional details, kindly reach out to the author. Please be advised that this document includes novel proposals regarding analogies, examples, and techniques for personal reflection. Should there be any inquiries, they should be addressed directly to the author.